Alright, I gotta get cracking here. It's a little before dark. I am at the Mount Olivet Cemetery here in Frederick, Maryland, and I've come here today because of this ungodly sight. This is what's known as Confederate Row. This row here contains the bodies of 311 soldiers, Confederate, who died in battles in Maryland, and I'll get back to that, but who could not be buried in Antietam for fairly obvious reasons. The Antietam cemetery was built, I believe, again, I'm not the Civil War expert, there are those who know a lot more than I do, but I think it was built just 5 years or so after the war, so feelings were still running extremely high. I don't think there was a rule or a law that said you can't bury Confederates here, but it just wasn't gonna happen. I think the townspeople may have had a strong say in that as well, or not, but in any event, they had to find other places that they could put them. It was almost at this point like, well, somewhere, anywhere will do. As you can see, this lovely row here is at the back of the cemetery, so I mean, when I pointed over that way, that's kind of the entrance, so looking up over those trees to the front, to the corner by Monacacy Boulevard. So I'm to the kind of to the back of the cemetery, and the best that they could do for these boys here from the south was put them in one little row that's not more than about 6 feet from the fence, and basically take up as little space as is humanly possible. So again, these were Confederates from surrounding Maryland battles. It's a little confusing as to which battles at this cemetery. Now, when you look up information with the most official agencies, the Park Service, and on the description that you're about to see up here in a little bit, say that most of the men here came from the Battle of Monacacy, Monacacy Junction, which is just down the street. It's right across Route 70 and Route 40. But if you look at what the Park Service has to say, that they say that they came from Monacacy. They also came from the other surrounding battles, which would be the Battle of South Mountain, which is kind of a set of skirmishes, and from Antietam as well. It doesn't say exactly how many from which site, and that's where things get really messy. And even some of the best people that I've been following, and who are experts on the subject, that will tell you that we still don't know exactly, you know, and we may never know exact numbers or, you know, counts of how many Confederates, known or unknown, from which battle went to which cemetery, because again, there are 300 here, and we're about to get to a spot where we're about to find 400 more. So that makes 700. However, the count at Antietam alone, oh shoot, was 1,550 Confederate dead. So this would account for about half of them. And that doesn't include Confederate dead from Monacacy. So you can see here, and again, I am not the expert, but the numbers don't quite always line up, and even the best historians don't seem to know exactly how many. When it comes to the Confederates, not the Union soldiers, of course, because that's a lot easier. And might I add, you know, some bodies were never recovered, some bodies were unidentifiable for whatever reason. There's almost always something to at least identify if they were Union or Confederate, of course. But, you know, it was a really messy business. And after being buried initially and hastily in the areas surrounding those battles, much closer to those battlefields themselves, you know, and surrounding farms and stuff, then they had to go back to those sites, dig them up, and then put them in a place like this. So getting back to the other cemetery, in Hagerstown, there is a cemetery, I think it's called the Rose, oh shoot, it's Rose Hill Cemetery, I think, And inside the Rose, because it's always, you know, a cemetery within a cemetery, just like this one here is Confederate Row within Mount Olivet. Well, at Rose Hill Cemetery in Hagerstown, there is a Washington's Confederate cemetery, which is even worse than this. And I'm going to kind of stop there. You can go and research that more on your own, or you can wait till the next video, because I'll probably make a trip up there in sometime. I'm not sure how soon. But so we are about to the end of this row. I've got to kind of wrap things up here. Worst thing in the world. There's no good side. There's no good war. I know people, again, are extremely emotional about the Civil War. But if you understand war, there's only one winner. It's not one side or the other. It's not the Union. It's not the South. It's not the Republicans. It's not the Democrats. It's not the American people at all. It's not us. The winner are the bankers, like I've mentioned before. Anyways, this marker right here tells us 408 unknown Confederate soldiers. So these were the unknowns. Came all from Monacacy. So we'll have to dig into this a little bit more. I'm not exactly sure what we're looking at here. This is obviously quite much a little bit older than that guy over there. I don't know if there was ever an inscription. Perhaps it was a piece of the battlefield itself. It looks more iron than rock, but it looks like a mix. You know, it could be either. It could be a slab of rock with a very heavy iron content. Anyways, that right there is not litter. That's what I left. That's all I had to leave. I feel like I have to leave something in places like these, and I know most people will shake their finger at me, but I think some of the boys here might actually appreciate the gesture. It's all I kind of had on me. Usually I'd leave a shell or a rock or something, but this is a horrible thing. It has much the same effect as reading the names of Point Lookout. You know, it is not as extensive as, you know, the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C., but the effect is very similar. It should be very similar, because there was no good side. Nobody won. Nobody won this war, because I'll tell you what, you know, before the war, ask you a couple questions. Did we have a sales tax? Before the Civil War, did we have property tax? Okay, I'll ask you another one. Before the war, did we have income tax? Before the war, was there a central bank that dictated the financial affairs of our nation instead of, you know, the U.S. Treasury? It's all about the money. There were no winners, there were no losers. I don't give a GD if you're on the left or you're on the right, if you're young, if you're old, if you're from Alabama, if you're from Vermont. None of the thousands and thousands of boys, largely boys, who died during this conflict, none of them did us any good at all. What this war did was send us all into more debt and make this nation, and therefore eventually the world, a debtor nation and a debtor global economy that actually cannot run without debt. A lot of people don't understand that stuff. I do economics too, but I've been trying to keep things on a, you know, pretty safe keel and do nature stuff, but lately it's been history and Civil War, and this is what I've been doing lately. So sue me, leave some comments about how I'm a bigot, and all I know is what I've read on the internet, or, you know, whatever you want to say about me. But I'm gonna sign off in this note, and we'll hopefully pick up on a better, happier note, maybe at another park or another beach, or get another hiking soon. Anyways guys, till the next one.